speak to Hanin Barghouti. She's the projects manager at the Gift of the Givers Disaster Relief Group's Palestine Office. Hanin, thank you so much indeed for your time. What's the latest you're hearing from Gaza in terms of how people are managing to survive with so little while, of course, simultaneously being bombed and attacked?
So the humanitarian situation in Gaza is a disaster. It's tragic from all sides, and what's happening in Gaza is a catastrophe. The humanitarian situation is really bad from all terms. The health sector has totally collapsed. People are not finding food, water, or any assistance there. Nowadays, the weather in Palestine is really cold, rainy, and stormy. So people who are displaced. We have over than 1.5 million people who got displaced. They were forced to be displaced from their houses, are now taking shelters and tents, and in the streets are now facing the bad weather and all the cold with no decent clothing, with no decent place to shelter in. So the situation is really bad. People are trying to survive using the minimum. There is nothing. They are surviving on. People, yes, are surviving because the people of Gaza are tough people, but what's happening is a total crisis, and the hospitals are overcrowded with people. The people are starving. We have witnessed and we have seen that people have died because of starvation. So yeah, the situation is disastrous. People are not finding food, not finding clean water. There's no decent medicine or medical supplies for the injured, that they are in tens of thousands of numbers. So the humanitarian situation is a total crisis. And the people are facing something that never happened in the whole world. Also, not to forget that with all of these humanitarian situation, the bombing is still going, and the Israelis are still bombing in all places. The Israelis have tried to convince the whole world that the southern areas of Gaza are safe place, but they are now intensely bombing the southern areas after they have forced a lot of people to go there and to shelter there or to get displaced there. So yeah, the humanitarian situation is a disaster. Plus the continuous bombing and the increased number of the people that are getting killed with each minute.
Hanin, I think you've mentioned something very, very important here about how Israel presents to the outside world evidence that it shows that it is abiding and observing international humanitarian law, but then its subsequent actions mean that actually it probably isn't, according to experts. And one thing I want to address here, first of all, let's hear a clip from the head of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, and then I'm going to ask you this question about the issue you've just mentioned. Let's hear the clip.
I hope that everybody realizes now, unfortunately under tragic circumstances, how important UNRWA is, especially when an emergency like this. But not only an emergency, UNRWA provides education to 500,000 Palestinian children. UNRWA provides health services to millions of Palestinians. If UNRWA goes away and is not funded, the Palestinians that have already been so tragically penalized by history will be even more penalized. So a very strong and vibrant appeal through you, please, to donors, to support UNRWA, not only for the emergency response, but going forward to support the agency that is so important for, I would say, not only the Palestinians, but the whole region.
Okay, so Hanin, my point is this. Israel has allowed very, very minimal aid to enter Gaza since October the 7th. We know it's not enough, but even the little that it allows to enter, once it starts bombing, and once its soldiers start fighting, presumably aid agencies can't actually distribute the aid, so the assistance that Israel allows in almost becomes irrelevant. Is that a kind of fair analysis?
Yeah, that's true. As you said it, so after the 7th of October, or since the 7th of October, Israel has prevented Gaza from all life essentials such as water, fuel, electricity, medicine, medical supplies. And of course, even before this war, the humanitarian situation in Gaza was a disaster because of the tens of years of siege by the Israelis. So after the 7th of October, the Israelis has prevented the entrance of the aid to Gaza, and during the truce, the Israelis have allowed the entrance of a very minimum number of aid trucks. And of course, it's not enough to, even if the Israelis allowed to this aid to be distributed, it's not enough to cover the actual needs of the people in Gaza. So the people there, we have 2.3 million of the civilians living in Gaza who are in desperate need of all life essentials. And the number of the aid that were allowed is really can barely cover 2% of the actual needs. And with the continuous bombing and the continuous airstrikes, it becomes really hard for the humanitarian organizations to work. So as in Gift of the Givers, we are a humanitarian organizations that we are doing our best to work in Gaza and to help the people of Gaza. But for all the organizations, the international humanitarian organization to work is really hard, not only because of the continuous bombing, but also because of the lack of the supplies. It's really hard for us to find the needed essentials to provide the people with it. And also with the continuous bombing and the obstacles of communicating, obstacles of moving around, it becomes way harder for us to work and to help the people. Yes, we are doing our best. Our team in Gaza, we have lost a team member. Our manager in Gaza, we have lost him by an Israeli airstrike, although he's an international humanitarian organization worker. He was killed by an Israeli airstrike. So our team in Gaza are not safe, and it's really hard for them to work. All of our team members got forced to be displaced from their houses in the north and in Gaza City to the south, and now they are being bombed, So yeah, as a humanitarian organization, it's really hard for us to work, and the people are not getting any sufficient aid. And the Israelis, although they are claiming that they are allowing a number of aid trucks to be in Gaza, but they are not helping the humanitarian organizations to work. Actually, they are preventing and increasing the obstacles of the bombing, the continuous airstrikes. They have bombed UNRWA shelters, claiming that UNRWA shelters are safe place for people and it belongs to the UN. They have bombed UNRWA shelters. They have bombed hospitals. They have bombed, the bare streets. They have bombed everywhere. So there is no safe spots in Gaza. And claiming that the work of the UN or the humanitarian international organizations is being easy, or they are helping, that's a false claim. And all of us as a humanitarian organizations are facing a really difficult time in working, although our teams are doing their best to work. They are helping people. We are trying our best to distribute, but all the continuous bombing and airstrikes and everything that's happening is playing big obstacles for us to work properly and to help the people as much as we actually want. And something I want also to add, that now the Ministry of Health has announced that we have over than 300,000 people are getting infections and diseases. So now the work of the hospitals is much needed, not only for the wounded and the people that are getting bombed, but also the people that are getting diseases and infections because of everything that's happening, because of the bodies that are still under the rubble, because of the weather. So yeah, the situation is disastrous and the humanitarian organizations cannot work properly.
Hanin Barghouti, we can't thank you enough for speaking to us and explaining the situation from the point of view of international organizations like yours. Thank you so much indeed.